We're here to celebrate the life and achievements of Jean Nash Wells, editor of the Positive Community magazine. In a time filled with deliberate chaos and confusion, we need some good news from the church and community. We're living in uncharted times, unpredictable and perhaps scary, but the more things are shaken, the more challenging times become. That's the time for those things which cannot be shaken to arise and to become our anchor. Things like God, family, and community. A well known rabbi by the name of Yeshua said years ago that a house divided against itself cannot stand. That's why we must come together and support one another like never before. There is strength, power, and healing in unity. And the media is critical in times like this. In addition to the usual stories we hear about what tragedies happen today, we need messages of hope, messages of inspiration. We need good news that can be found in the Positive Community magazine.
Too many of things.
I'm looking forward to hearing and learning about the life and career of Jean Nash Wells. Let's see what lessons we can glean from her journey on this earth. But before we introduce Jean, today's discussion would not be possible without. Oh, I also need to acknowledge Pillar College. We'd like to thank Trina Stokes for hosting us. I also would like to acknowledge Nakisha and Corey for catering this event. A reminder that we will be back in the house on September 20th, honoring Richard Wesley, acclaimed playwright and screenwriter. And our last event of the year will be in December, which will be a potluck uh, event. But before I introduce Jean, today's discussion would not be possible without the technical expertise of Andrew Frazier. I'm going to turn it over to Andrew at this time.
Thanks, David. I'm excited to be here with everybody, and I'm looking for a great session with Jean today. Appreciate everybody tuning in and joining us. Looking forward to the upcoming one in September. There's also a couple other events that would be good for you to know about. One of them is there's a Juneteenth celebration at Montclair Art Museum next Saturday and Sunday. There's a great art show, opportunity to get a lot of Black art from artists around the country. There's info, and I'll put the info in the chat. And as well, we got Richard Wesley coming in September. And then I'm doing some events for entrepreneurs and business owners. So if you're an entrepreneur or business owner in the Newark area or want to come to the Newark area, come join us on July 24th and 25th. And actually, Calvin Reed, our past speaker, is going to be one of the speakers at the conference. So hopefully you can join us on the 25th, and look forward to seeing you there. And if you can't, the night before is a networking session. And let's get it back to Jean.
Greetings to everyone who are sitting in the virtual living room and here in the actual living room. We call it a living room because it's a space of peace, a space of comfort. And so in this space, I get to say, ladies and gentlemen, family and friends, community from near and far, we welcome you. And we thank you for being with us today. And once the replay is available, feel free to share it. It is truly an honor to sit with someone who is such a pillar in our community. Someone who, and I wrote some notes down, and I'm not going to talk a lot. I'm going to read from this storied bio that Jean has shared. And so I'll say today we're honored to welcome a woman whose life and work has been dedicated to telling stories, our stories, has been dedicated to telling them with truth, dignity, integrity, and love. Please put your hands together for someone who has done this with unwavering passion. Everyone, I present to some and introduce to others none other than Jean Nash Wells. So starting with melody, I want to say thank you to my colleagues, all of who have come to the microphone. We know today TT is online. She's our moderator online, and we have Doreen, who has been such a strong part of our team as well. So I want to start with Jean's bio. And I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm not gonna do it any justice, but I'm gonna give it a good try, right? So Jean Nash Wells is the co-founder of the
Mayor,
Positive Community Corporation and editor-in-chief of the Positive Community magazine. I'll pause here to say that the magazine has been around for 25 years. This is the 25th year, and they also have what's called the Positive Community Radio. So if you want some good music, right? If you want some good music, log on to thepositivecommunity.com and look, I think it's up in the upper left-hand corner. You'll find a place where you can click to listen into the music. So that's, one thing I should mention, and we're going to talk a little bit about the inception of the magazine that Jean co-founded with Adrian, who you will hear from a little bit later. Adrian Council Sr. is Jean's business partner and publisher of the Positive Community. So another thing I will say is from the very inception of the magazine, it stood as a living archive of excellence, faith, and cultural pride within the African American experience. Now, you can find this publication online, and I'm going to hold up current editions. You can find this online, but you know a lot of what happens in these pages and online tell the stories from both sides of the Hudson. And so just moving along into Jean's career, Jean's journey didn't begin with the Positive Community, right? Her career spans pillars, it spans media, I should say, television, radio, and print, including her early work with the original staff of, anybody watch Sesame Street as a child? Yeah, yeah, me too. At the Children's Television Workshop in broadcasting, she has held sales and management roles at stations like WNJR, WNCN, WWRL, and the legendary WBLS FM and WLIB AM, part of the iconic Intercity Broadcasting Corporation. Jean also served as, I know maybe not Melody, I don't know, maybe not Melody because she's so young, but Showtime at the Apollo, right? She knows. Okay, Melody's shaking her head, 9 years old, right?
They have it's streaming all day.
Okay.
So I make her watch it. Like, hey, I used to watch this as a kid.
So Melody, so you'll know, and everyone else in the room, Jean was the general sales manager for Showtime at the Apollo. So through this conversation, Melody, I'm not picking on you, but you said something that was near and dear to my heart. You said you hoped that you could borrow some tips of success from Jean, and I think I do too, really. And so that's part of it. I mean, we know Jean relative to recent work with the Positive Community, but there's so much more. In 1989, Jean launched Jean Wells Associates Incorporated, a full-service advertising and public relations agency that represented major clients like Toys R Us, Burger King, and Inner City Broadcasting. Throughout her career, Jean has received numerous accolades: Journalist of the Year, Legend Award, it goes on and on. So many awards, and one of them was the Shirley Chisholm Unbossed and Unbought Award. I'll pause there to say she is true to who she is. She is true to who she loves. And I promise you, on everything I know and love, if you ask Jean a question, don't ask her anything you don't want to hear her truth, the truth as it stands. So many, many distinctions, community, fraternal, government organizations have all acknowledged, community-based organizations have acknowledged Jean. And I'll kind of sum it up to say that she's been on several boards, and she served on the Harlem Symphony Orchestra board. The WBGO, we're a few doors away here in Newark, New Jersey. We're a few doors away from WBGO FM Jazz Radio. She's been on that board, as well as the New Jersey Black Chamber of Commerce and beyond, always championing causes and promote arts, health, business, and empowerment in our communities. So we're not just sitting with a journalist, we're sitting with a trailblazer, a storyteller, and a cultural curator of our history and our lives. A woman whose work continues to shape who we are, how we see ourselves in the world. And thank you, Jean. I say thank you because I will say personally, I see Jean as she's been an advisor to me. She has been my editor on quite a few stories for the positive community. And I would dare say she's been a friend. And I thank you. And I thank you for being here in this conversation. So we're going to talk a little bit. I'm going to kick off some questions with Jean. And as David mentioned earlier, these are, I'll use the word tumultuous. I think some people would say tumultuous times. So we'll talk about Jean's life. We'll talk about culture, American culture, Black culture. We'll talk about her views and experiences, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. Now, one thing, and I have the great challenge of keeping an eye on the clock, right? Because they have to actually be out of here in less than an hour to have another event. So let's kick off with a first question. Jean, let's start with the beginning. When you think back to your earliest memories, the sounds, the people, the stories, what part of your upbringing first connected you to the power of community and storytelling? Where did that start?
First of all, I just want to say thank you to everyone who is here in the room and all of those online, and particularly my family. I see my daughter-in-law from California, my son from Atlanta, people right here in Montclair and East Orange. They're all here for me, and I appreciate that. And that is perhaps what this whole thing is about, and that's family.
Yes,
And I think getting a little, whoops.
it's fine.
But I think it started with my parents. First of all, come from a large family. I have 5 older brothers and 2 younger sisters. Unfortunately, I am now the oldest person. My sister is a little bit younger than me, but it's just the 2 of us now.
Jean is being
So that's
honored.
a big change.
What? Jean is being
Yes, she is.
So it's amazing that, we grew up in such a big family, but luckily I have a great extended family. And when all of the Nashes get in a room, we fill it. Thankfully, my siblings were quite, they had some children. And now those children have children. And so that part is great. And when you talk about, you mentioned asking people if they remembered Sesame Street, and all of these people with gray hair and stuff are answering, yes, I saw that. I know about it. Well, I was working at Sesame Street.
Mhm.
And so I was a little bit more than a teenager.
Mhm.
And my work at Sesame Street was to show teachers and parents how to use the show. Because of course it wasn't meant to just be a show for children to love, which they did, but there was also the learning factor, and my job was to teach that. But I go back to my family, my parents. We had so many books in the house. Our dining room table was a learning experience for me, because you had to sit in your seat. You had the seat that you had to sit in. We had to have perfect manners for dinner. And then after dinner, we would stay at the table for hours and just talk and laugh and have fun and get to know one another. So, from what my mother was a musician, and she had students in our home. She taught just about every instrument as well as vocal. And so our house was always filled with music. Her father had a school in New York City on Lenox Avenue, and he was a professor of music, and she was a child prodigy. And she also spoke 5 languages. And my father was a strong man, quiet but strong, and you didn't mess around with daddy. But for us girls, he would let us put curlers in his hair. And he would go sleep in the chair, and we could do whatever we wanted. He was wonderful. And he was a Pullman porter. So that history, of course, they loved A. Philip Randolph and what he did for the Pullman porter. But he could also do anything. We didn't have a lot of money because they had all of these children. And though I was surprised, in fact, to see how much money he made. I think one year I saw, and this is back, I don't know whether anybody knows how old I am, but this was many years ago. I saw that he had an income of $6,000. And I thought we were rich. So they managed to do very well on $6,000, and I don't know whether that counted the tips or not. But I never wanted for anything. Never wanted for anything. But my dad would go and watch somebody do something in a construction site or something like that, and then he would come home and do it. He could do anything, and he was a great cook. So that family life is what has been my backbone all of these years. And I have to say that it has extended into my nieces and nephews, certainly my children. They all support me greatly. So, and history, boy, when I start thinking of things, there were so many things that went into who I am. I grew up in Clifton, New Jersey. And Clifton, there was where we lived, there was a little street, Long Street, actually, Delawana Avenue, but there was a little portion of that street where there were like I think 4 or 5 Black families that lived there. And I don't remember being in school with any of the children. There were some children, but they somehow or other, they just weren't in our school. But so all through my grammar school and high school, I certainly was the only girl and my only Black girl. And my brothers were the only Black boys. Now they went on, they played football and basketball and stuff. They were very, very popular. But somehow or other, I was popular in school. I was always in a leadership position in the clubs, in the general, what they call student union and that kind of thing. I was always an officer. I was very smart. My mother made sure that I had the most wonderful clothes, and all of the girls would borrow my things. They would call me and say, Jean, can I borrow your green sweater today? Or can I borrow your belt? But I never got invited to parties. I never went to prom. I was on the prom committee, and my uncle, who was a musician, got a noted band. I can't think of it right now, but got a noted band to play for the prom. But I didn't go. In those days, you didn't go if you didn't have a date. So I didn't go to the prom. But it was fine. I had my family, and we had a prom at home. Even the same thing even happened when I graduated from high school. Wasn't invited to parties, but that was okay because I can remember clearly sitting in our yard and, having great fun. It was wonderful. So I learned a lot about those people, but they didn't learn about me. And so that part of my life is just different. It's different what I'd like to say that when I began to um, go out and meet people and meet Black people, I didn't have any friends my age. And I would say, like a young man would say, hey, Gene, what's up? I say, oh, the stock market, or I couldn't, I wasn't familiar with the language, but I soon learned and it was great. Um, so that was my background. That's what formed me. And my parents and my mother never let me believe that I couldn't do anything that I wanted to do. In fact, I recall when I graduated from high school, I went to Montclair State, but my mother told me she had read in the paper there was that Columbia University was having a program for Black students who wanted to be journalists, and then they had this special program. She said, you should go there. And I said, no, Mom, I'm not good enough. I would never get into Columbia University. I can't be a journalist. What am I? Where am I? The positive community. So listen to mom too. That's a good thing. Listen to what your mother says. And I try to tell my children that because what I tell you, I only want the best for you in life. And I think I got that best. I did get that best.
Jean, I think that that's a beautiful foundation. And I want to connect with a few things. One being, what would you say the greatest lessons that you learned from your parents? And then talk also about syndrome, because you said, I don't think I can go to that program because I don't know if I belong at Columbia. Like that's something like belonging is imposter syndrome, but what were the lessons? And then what do you say about anyone who's feeling that? And I'll say one more thing. I recently had a conversation with someone about Dr. Maya Angelou's quote, and I'm going to paraphrase it just in case I mess it up, but it's something like, when I come somewhere, right? I come in as one, but I stand as 10,000.
Oh, wow. That's a lot.
I come as one, but I stand as 10,000.
Yeah.
So a lot there, but we start with the lessons from your parents.
Well, the first lesson is about love. We, our family, it's a big family, and there are lots of different personalities, but in the end, we all come together. And I have to really give a shout out to my niece Cheryl, and she's here with us today. And she's the what is it? The Cuztriot? She's the matriarch of the cousins.
Okay.
And she really keeps our family together. And thanks also to her husband who allows her to have us at her house so many times and to feed us, and they're wonderful. And so, but the love, the caring about other people is very important, because people would come to our house for dinner and stay for a year. And that's the actual truth. They would sleep in the basement. We had a big house, so there was always room for somebody, but they would come and stay. One time, this young man came who knew my brother Leighton from being in the Marine Corps with him, and this was after I was out of the house. I was married out of the house. Went there one day, and Buddy, who was Caucasian, and his wife and 3 children had moved in with my parents. So that caring for humanity, the caring for everybody is one thing that I learned from my mother. I also learned not to curse. My mother would call us bad names. Curse, but she had bad names. They were like hydrangea, forsythia. She'd say, "You little forsythia, you better stop that." So we had lots and lots of fun. What was the rest of your question?
So about imposter syndrome, what tips, tools, or thoughts do you have about, similar to the quote, when you come into a space, you come as one person. But for those of us who have a certain belief about ancestors and the power of our ancestors, we enter as one, but we stand as
Right.
10,000. Like what connection can you make between what you were feeling when your mom said, go to Columbia, go to journalism school, and you're like, I don't think so.
Mhm.
What tips do you have for those of us who want to
Might
listen,
have
but
that feeling?
yeah.
Well, I don't really know. I guess you just have to learn either to live with it or to understand who you are and what you can actually do. And I think it's more about doing. It's about doing what you want to do. I suppose I suppose that I learned that I did have something to offer. I don't know how I learned that. Maybe just from the love, maybe from um again back to my family, how I helped raise my nieces and nephews, and had to make sure that they did not have that feeling. And of course, I'm telling you about a time, this was before there was integration in schools. I have to tell you, I am old. I'll be 88 years old in in July. July, I'll be 88. So the things that I know is from a long time ago. And so there was no school integration. There was, even though, we had to be the best that we could be. And we had to, my mom would tell me when I went to school, don't let anybody, maybe somebody called me the N-word or something, and she used to tell you know what that means, right? But that's not you. That's not you. You can do anything you want. Look at your brothers, look at your sisters, look at us. We're fine. We don't have much, but we have the love. And we know who we are. So all of my Black history, which I think it was really very good, a lot, I learned from my parents and in the books that we had in school, had at home, nothing from school at all.
Oh, first of all, let me just pause. She says she was about to be 88 next month. Fabulosity on full display.
Yeah.
It is.
I mean, so had to say that.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have good genes.
Yes, you do, Jean. Jean
Jean
has
has
good
good
genes. Yes, she does. Yes, she does. And really on the serious note, what you just mentioned about the history that you lived through. The fact that there are certain books that are being taken out of
Oh, wow.
schools, taken
Yeah.
out of different places, libraries, not available. What would you say to parents now or grandparents now about, what is the responsibility that people have when it comes to understanding? I mean, any culture, Black culture, any culture. But what is the responsibility parents and grandparents have?
Well, I can't imagine being a mother of young children now because, I've seen parents give their kids books and really great book. I remember the first book that I brought my oldest son. It was a book with a colored, that's what they called it back then. You were colored. In fact, I have a nephew who not long ago said that colored guy. And I had to tell him, no, we don't say that anymore.
Yeah.
We're something else. And that has changed over the years of what we call ourselves. I guess, I don't know, maybe we called ourselves when I was young, maybe we were colored, maybe. I'm not sure. And then I think we went to Negro during the civil rights period. And then we went to Afro-Americans, not African. And now we're African Americans, I guess. That's who we are.
Yeah. The evolution.
The evolution of that.
Right.
But I forgot the question, excuse me.
So it's anything that
Oh, it's
with
terrible. Yeah, because the kids, they get these phones and these iPads and at the earliest of age. And when you give them a book, they want to swipe it and see what happens. So for me, it's really hard for me to tell a parent today how they should do it. And, I had a curfew when I had to be in the house, 20 years old. I had to be in the house at 12 o'clock. And my mother would go to the window, go to the door and flash the lights if I was sitting in the car with somebody. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's if it's a different world, and I'm glad I'm not raising a child at this time.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Jean, you have so many different experiences. Can you take us back to the year 2000 when you and Adrian Council Sr. Had this idea that is now not just a magazine, not just I mean, you have the magazine, you have the radio, you have also events like the Emancipation Day event, and so many other things that you do through the Positive Community Corporation.
Mhm.
Um, Talk to us about the history, where you started, as well as the evolution of where you are today, and perhaps where you want to go in the future.
Wow, that's a lot. A
Mhm.
lot packed in there.
A lot.
I am here with the Positive Community because I got fired. I got fired from inner city broadcasting. And I really think it was because I was making too much money. Oh, okay.
Trouble here.
Is that better?
Yeah.
I'll try to say that. I'll try to be not loud. So, but I got fired and I was devastated. And I was making too much money. I was too good. And I first I was the sales manager at LIB. I had been at I think 3 other radio stations in sales. And that's another whole story in terms of how I got to the radio business. I we had 3 children in private school in New York City. And it was, we decided we wanted to move out and maybe not pay so much for school, but we ended up moving to a beautiful home in East Orange that we renovated and was gorgeous. The children went to school, but they would come home and say, Mommy, the teacher's not supposed to say ain't, is she? Or they didn't want to tell where they went for the summer. So when somebody went to, wherever they went, they had a really good life. And they the school was just not working for them, the public schools in East Orange. So we moved to East Orange and I started working. I have to get things straight now. Um, I was working at Sesame Street, and one of my brother had a shirt company called Simba, and it was a shirt company. The material was something that the fabric company Burlington Mills made especially for him. Anyway, he was doing very well, and I don't know. I forget what I'm trying to say.
So bringing it all to
Oh, I know.
conclude.
So we actually did I did some marketing and advertising for him, and we got a story in the New York Times magazine section. And so from there, I met this gentleman who had an agency, and I worked with him. And then when we moved to New Jersey, I met him at the again at the preschool, and he asked me to go to work for him at New Jersey's WNJR. So I went there as a sales assistant, just helping him out. And before I knew it, I was the sales manager. So that's how I got into radio and into working in the media.
Mm.
From there, I went to a station in New York called WNCN, which was a classical music station. And that was an interesting thing because sometimes I would call on these classical music people, people who were, um, in that kind of a economic position, and they didn't think I knew anything about classical music, and that was really very interesting.
Mm.
But then I went to WBLS and WLIB, and I did very well there. That's where I met Adrian. And I got fired and I said, what am I going to do?
Mhm.
So I started an agency. And actually, Inner City Broadcasting was my first customer. And that's how I got involved with the Apollo.
So jumping in, because I know a little bit of this, but I want everyone else to know, when you said you did very well at Inner City Broadcasting, talk about what that is and how it translates into doing very well financially for the company.
How that translates into.
Right, because your team, you and your team
Mhm,
did very well.
we did.
What
we
did that look like?
Oh, I'm not sure I know what you mean, but um, we took the station from um, being a losing money to being profitable. And I guess part of what we did was to understand that even though station WBLS FM was the thing
Mhm.
across the United States, we were in a talk station, and it was hard. It was hard, but we wanted to do the best we could for who we are, as
Mhm.
because it was a talk station, and our clients were a lot of the clients were small Black businesses, and we always did the best we could for our clients, and that's what we do now with the positive community.
Mm. So speaking of the positive community, what's the vision? Where are we now? What do you want the people to know? And how can we all, I don't like to use the word support,
Mhm.
but how can we help with the vision?
Well, but we think that the vision will help you, help
Mhm.
us,
Mhm.
because our whole goal is to be able to tell the stories that even ourselves don't know that we have. So the idea was that the larger media does not did not for a long time cover the real information about who we are. For sensationalism is the thing that people look like wherever it is. It's either in print, so it's everybody who's getting stabbed or shot, or that's not who we are. That's not the total us. It certainly happens, but it happens in other communities as well. And I had a thought the other day watching something where I saw there was a shooting in one of the European countries,
Mhm.
and it's happening all over the world. We're not the United States, and Black people are just not the only people who own guns, or who the media pictures as being the worst possible people. So we're telling those stories, and the stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And that extraordinary thing is just living our lives. It's a
Mhm.
job to live your life and be with integrity and with love for one another. It's difficult, but the people that we spotlight, and the organizations that we spotlight, are those that are doing what they need to do to hold our heritage together,
Mhm.
to hold us to who we really are.
Mhm. What do you want people in this room? And when I say this room, I mean
Out there too.
virtual living room, on-site living room. What do you want us to do?
Well, first of all, would like people to understand that we are in a business that is meant to uplift, uplift us. We, it's like when I said I would tell my mother I couldn't go to Columbia University. You can look in the magazine, any page of the magazine every month, and find people who have been to Columbia and now are coming back to the community
Mhm.
to help. So I want people to know that our vision is to help them know who they are and what they can do. And by supporting us, the magazine is in many times free. The magazine itself is free. You can find it in hospitals and libraries, wherever. But we do have churches that buy the magazine in bulk every month and distribute it to their congregations. But you can also just pass on the information and let other people know that the magazine exists. And Adrian corrects me all the time. We're not just a magazine anymore. we're a media company. We have the online um, uh, service, we have the radio service, we have the magazine, it's the print magazine, the digital magazine, and we have we have plans for some great events coming up. And be reminded that in July of 2026, the country of the United States of America came into being 250 years ago. Next year, that's a big year. That's a big happening. And so we're going to be positioning ourselves, our people, as to who they are and what we added to this country now, and it's 250 years old.
Wow, it's pretty powerful. We are running really, I've got a whole list of
Mhm.
other questions and I want to get to Q&As, and there's so many notable people. So let's do like a really quick round robin of quick questions. So one, name someone who you've either interviewed or worked with that has had a very big impression. You can name more than one, but who comes to mind initially?
Yeah, well, there are so many people. And right here sitting in the audience is Miss, yeah, Della Walker.
Mhm.
Yeah, so, she's an amazing woman and she came all the way here for me. And and all you young people, you should know that just because, you can't remember one little name, you're not that bad off.
Mhm.
So, but it's just people. We have interviewed Harry Belafonte. We have interviewed the mayor of Newark many times. We have interviewed the mayor of New York City. There are just so many people who have touched our lives. Yeah, but and you'll see that we don't focus on celebrity. If a celebrity has done something really good for the community, then they might find a story about themselves. But generally, it's us, it's you, it's me, it's us that we are the positive community.
Yes.
Mhm. I think that's one of the most beautiful things because you remind us that through the struggle, through the challenges, there's still a lot of good and great to celebrate about
Oh,
us and
absolutely.
about our people, our history,
The fact that
our
we keep
culture.
on keeping on.
That's it. I applaud that.